Now we begin with reports of Russian airstrikes in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. At least 7 people are said to be dead after attacks on military infrastructure. Meanwhile, a small band of Ukrainian soldiers are trying to hold on to the southern city of Mariupol. Russian attacks have already destroyed most of the city.
But President Volodymyr Zelensky has vowed Ukrainians will fight to the end. Charlie D'Agata reports.
Good morning, Lana. Ukraine's prime minister says Ukrainian forces continue to make a stand in Mariupol, and it has not fallen to Russian forces despite renewed threats that any remaining fighters would be eliminated. There's not much left of Mariupol after weeks of an unrelenting Russian onslaught. But within this sprawling steel plant and the series of tunnels beneath it, a number of Ukrainian forces are still holding out, defying the ultimatum from Russia to surrender or die. Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba told Face the Nation Russia is razing the city to the ground at any cost.
The situation in Mariupol is both dire militarily and heartbreaking. The city doesn't exist anymore.
In Kharkiv, medics treating an injured woman were forced to dive for cover to save their own lives in the middle of an artillery attack. Amid the suffering and fear, worshippers gathered for the start of Holy Week in Ukraine. Easter is celebrated next Sunday. In Vinnytsia, southwest of the capital, Proto-Deacon Vladislav prayed for the lives of the injured and the souls of the dead. But the war has turned the church into a battleground too. After Russian Orthodox leaders gave their blessings to the war, and President Putin too. Father Vladislav says that makes the Russian Orthodox Church an accomplice. It's a position no church should ever take, he said. Russia started this war not defending their territory, but attacking the territory of our country. Even as the war rages on, he's praying for a peaceful Easter.
Is it more difficult to hope under the circumstances?
When people undergo all this grief and atrocities, and they still hope, still believe, still say they feel the hand of God that guides them, this belief becomes their reality. New images have emerged showing that Russian warship that went down in the Black Sea last week, showing smoke billowing and the ship starting to sink after allegedly being struck by Ukrainian missiles. Naval experts have identified that it is the ship. They can't confirm where or when those images were taken. Lana and Vlad.
All right, Charlie, thank you. With us now from Lviv is an award-winning photojournalist, Finbar O'Reilly. He's an independent photographer and regular contributor to the New York Times. Finbar, welcome. So what can you tell us about these reported missile strikes in Lviv?
So Lviv, this woke up to the sound of explosions and skyline. And I went to the scene, the explosions, where you're just seeing on your screen there now the smoke that was rising up over the city. And officials here are quite touchy about there was a police cordon around the area. Some images have come out of firefighters now. I was able to get some pictures of the one location of the 4 that was hit. That was a civilian location, appears to have been what officials have called a tire fitting plant. So that's where I was photographing. The other 3 hit may and told. So he was a little bit on edge this morning. This was really the first time, that there were up to 7 people killed in this attack, and these are the first known deaths from the war in Lviv, which is quite far west in the country. So far been spared the kind of devastation that we've seen from other parts in the east and closer to the capital in the center of the country.
Finbar, I'll just point out for our audience, obviously you're in Lviv, and the sometimes signal isn't as stable as we want it to be. So if people hear you cutting off them, just explain that. But let's talk about the people who have sought refuge in and around where you are right now in Lviv. Where can they now go?
Right. So what you're seeing around the whole city is a population that has moved to try and engage with this effort, a sort of existential effort to fight off an external threat. And so people have opened their homes. There are gymnasiums, there are sports complexes, there are all kinds of places where people are taking shelter who have come from other parts of the city, at the train station even. There are places where people can stay briefly as they transit through to Poland or other countries further afield. So there are a number of sites around the city where people are sheltered and are being looked after by community organizations, church groups, and various community organizations to food, bedding, clothing, and some of the basic comforts that people coming from other parts of the country require once they get here.
Finbar, you have worked before in conflict zones. I'm wondering both how this situation compares to what you've seen before, and also, are you hoping that the images that you're sending out to the rest of the world compel any particular type of action?
Well, I think, to answer your first question, every conflict has a character, and this one is unusual in the sense that it's taking place in Europe, which we haven't seen for decades. Most of the conflicts that I've covered have been in Africa and the Middle East, and I think is particularly devastating here in Ukraine, obviously, but of course it has wider repercussions in the sense that it has caused problems with a lot of the grain that is used to be shipped to other parts of the world to combat hunger globally is produced in Russia and Ukraine, and funds that have been diverted from other conflicts as well are being sent here. So there's a kind of knock-on ripple effect that is not only affecting severely, but in other parts of the world as well. And that's always something to keep in mind as well when we're looking at what's happening. You're to sort of convey is that I'm coming in as this war has now been going on for over 2 months, and we've been bombarded, sorry to use that word, with a constant stream of images of frontline conflict, artillery strikes. And so I'm a little further from the front line here for the most part, with the exception of these strikes today. But really, I'm trying to show the rhythm of life and the pace of life in the rear guard, really, a little bit further away from where the fighting is happening, and where much of the population that has fled those areas is trying to rage in the short term until they feel that it's safe for them to go home. So really just showing the rhythm and pattern of people who are affected by this war and their compatriots who are trying to help them and look after them in the ways they can. And then there are a lot of funerals as well. The last 2 days I've been photographing funerals of soldiers, and that is kind of just showing some of the toll in a way that is a little bit different from some of the images that we've been seeing coming from the front lines.
All right, Finbar O'Reilly, thank you for joining us, and stay safe.
Thank you.